Welcome to the Womanhood podcast. I'm your host, Shannon, Somatic and Energetic Integration Specialist for Women, Foundress of Somatic Body and Creatress of the SomaCycle method and the Feminine Harmony program. And I'm here to inspire you to reclaim your rhythms, remember your wisdom, and root into your womanhood. Each week, I'll be discussing topics centered around our womanhood from a multifaceted somatic and energetic viewpoint, weaving together both science with spirituality and masculinity with femininity. We'll be talking cyclical natures and rhythms, intuition, instincts, ancient womb wisdom, and grounded embodiment strategies. Find yourself a cozy space and let's get started. There is a real ache that many women carry. It's an ache deeper than the surface level thoughts and beliefs of being competitive, being one up of someone, or even the martyrdom of doing everything for everyone and giving your all in order to be accepted. It's deeper than those types of stories, and that deep ache that's been carried down ancestrally from woman to woman, from mother to mother, and throughout sisterhood as well, so non-blood relative as well. That deep ache is the ache for true female connections, womanly connections, whether it be with blood related or not. And why is there this deeper ache? Why is that there underneath? And it's because of all the stories that I was talking about before, the martyrdom, the peacemaker, the perfectionism roles of being one up other people, being put on a pedestal, liking being put on a pedestal, or liking putting someone else on a pedestal because you don't trust yourself, the competitiveness of being the queen bee. All of these barriers, so to speak, all of these stories that we've come to know for ourselves in our own individual ways based on our own experiences throughout life, but also have been carried on through the red thread ancestrally from mother to grandmother and so forth. And within that, all the sisterhoods that they experienced as well. There's this real deep need and desire underneath all of that for genuine sisterhood and support, a really healthy and supportive sisterhood. And so this episode is for the woman who longs to feel held, supported, safe in the presence of other women, or feel like they're on that journey already, but just want to deepen that journey. So strap in and let's get started. Now, the medicine is going to be all about sisterly connections, but I would probably start with the red thread and the ancestral lineage of woman. And so the red thread is kind of more of a spiritual philosophic term that speaks to the connection of women, of all women. The red thread being that what connects us through blood, we have our bleed cycle, through the womb, through the uterus, through pregnancy, where we have the placenta, again through the umbilicus and the placenta being shared, mother to daughter and so forth, all those generational ties. And it also ties us to the moon and us as women, how we are all tied together. So when we speak about the red thread, it's not just, it does predominantly talk about the connection of the mother line, so like how you've been born from a mother and that mother's had a mother and so forth. But it's also speaking to the connections that we experience with other women who also share a bleed cycle, who also share the eras of women, which is, you know, from menarche into maidenhood, maidenhood into motherhood, motherhood into margahood, marga into crone. Whether it's biologically or energetically, we are cycling through the seasons and we are all connected through this red thread. And so when we speak about the red thread, we are talking about that ancestral lineage that has been passed down from womb to womb, and it connects us all as women, not just by blood, not just by the mother line. So when we start to look at the red thread and unpack where we have gone wrong as a society of women in terms of having sisterly supports that are layered with condescending passive-aggressive comments or this undertone of competitiveness, all the unspoken things. And I guess passive aggression is the key word here, is like when you don't feel safe in a sisterhood, there's often a lot of passive aggressiveness, being that there's a lot of unsaid and unspoken things, and we just deal with it. We're just okay with it. It's been normalized. And so when we start to unpack the reasons behind those kinds of behaviors, we can start to learn more about ourselves, our patterns, but also the women who came before us. Learning what they experienced. What did my mother experience? What did her mother experience? What was the generations like back then? Why was there a need for competitiveness? And so we are going to explore that by going through and starting with the red thread, but also starting to delve into the red thread and going over sister wounds, mother wounds, And from there, the 4 main archetypes of how we characterize our behaviors based on these core wounds that we have, these core sister and mother wounds. And it can often be very unconscious. So once we start to unpack these behaviors, unpack these definitions of the red thread, sister wound, mother wound, and all the 4 main archetypes that I'm going to take you through, you'll start to listen as I'm going along in this episode and familiarize them for yourself, and then start to understand the hallmark characteristics and ways of being, whether it's yourself or in relation to another woman, another relational dynamic that you have, and start to understand that on a deeper level and therefore overcome it. Once we understand something, it no longer has power over us, right? Even just that understanding is enough for us to make change, to shift the ways in which we are being. And so we can start with the mother wound. The mother wound is the core wound. It's the wound that reflects all of our relational templates with women. So how we interact with women, but on an unconscious level. It's like that deep core wound, the things that we can't see. And it can stem from emotional unavailability of the mother or grandmother or so forth, the ancestral lineage, over controlling or enmeshment, so that entanglement, but it's like a codependence, an unhealthy, toxic codependence, or inconsistency, neglect, abandonment of mother roles. And I'm not just talking about your direct mother, but that mother line, again, that goes back through lineage. It might not necessarily be something that you have had play out in your life for yourself, but you've seen it play out with your mother and your grandmother, or from your grandmother onwards, and you can start to see these hallmark behaviors and responses in yourself, even though you yourself haven't experienced it in this lifetime. And we could also go into and speak to past lives, if you believe in past lives and having experienced certain core wounds with mother wounds, father wounds, brother wounds, sister wounds as well. But we're not going to go there. We're focusing on sisterly connections. But yes, the mother wound is that core wound that reflects all of our relational dynamics with women. It's that first relational template that teaches us that if there was no emotional availability, that we had to go off and be hyper independent with our emotional capacity in how we dealt with our emotions. And that means often withdrawing and shutting off from people, not trusting people. If we had a mother that was over controlling or enmeshment and entangled with us, we start to lose a sense of who it is that we are, and we perhaps start to take on the entity and energy of what they are. Perhaps it's the peacemaker, perhaps it's the martyr who does it all. Perhaps it's just being lost in who you are, and in that, having that insecurity of forever checking what other sisters are doing, that comparisonitis with sisters. And then if you had the mother wound of inconsistency, neglect, or abandonment, you're always going to be waiting for that other shoe to drop. There's that, again, distrust in other women, particularly authoritative women. So with the mother wound, we also have this real characteristic within the 4 archetypes I'm going to go through that will show up like a kind of like a rebel, like a resistance to female authoritives. And so when you start to hear that kind of behavior, you can start to think, okay, core mother wound, let's get curious about that. Because the issue that I have is whenever a woman's giving me advice, for example, or whenever I'm in the presence of someone who knows more than me in a certain area of life, maybe it's a professional that you're seeing, like a female physio or something like that, starting to notice your response to these kinds of women in your life, you can start to think, okay, that's an authoritative woman. Is how I'm responding a healthy thing, or is there something to unpack here? And so the mother wound shapes how we experience authoritative women. And at the root, the mother wound says, do not trust women. All women are a mirror of my mother, essentially. But it's on a very, again, unconscious level until you start to become aware of it and start to unpack these characteristics. Now, the sister wound. This is formed after the mother wound. And so it kind of trickles in from that. And the sister wound is formed through experiences of betrayal, comparison, competitiveness, exclusion. And all of this can look and feel like feeling unsafe around other women. Again, not trusting other women, or just feeling like you can't open up. Comparing yourself to other women, or shrinking in the presence of other women. Or perhaps it's anticipating the rejection or the feeling of alienation before it's even happened. Again, because it's stemming deeper from the mother wound. And it could even go as far as to hold resentment or mistrust in women-led environments, like when you are in female circles, for example, and just having that real, I don't like to associate myself with women, with sisterhoods, having that real resistance and not having the trust to even put yourself in the situation to start to open up and experience and thrive in genuinely healthy and supportive sisterhoods. and womanly connections. And you know, there's other things there too. Maybe it's that you don't trust yourself. You don't feel like you have enough knowledge there yet with sisterhoods, that you don't know you'll be able to yet discern if it's a healthy dynamic or not yet. But here's the main important thing is like, if it feels good for you, like check in somatically. You know, I do somatic and energetic work. If you've already listened to me in other episodes or on my YouTube channel, however you've been following me, check in with your body. Ask yourself, does this feel good and healthy? And if it doesn't, have that conversation with the woman that you're thinking of that doesn't feel healthy with. Have that conversation. And if you feel like you can't, start to question why that is. Because there is a wound, a core wound to unpack there, whether it's mother or sister wound, whether it's a relational, as in blood related person, or a sister. But coming back to the sister wound, it does happen when we have gone through experiences of betrayal, comparison, exclusion, competition with other women, or even having observed all of those things through familial lines. So like having observed betrayal, comparison, exclusion, or competition within a dynamic between your mother and your grandmother, for example, or between cousins. Even having observed that and seeing what's been passed down the line, you can start to unpack, okay, well, do I have a bit of that? Is there something in me that resonates with that or triggers me? Because, you know, sometimes when we're triggered, it's because it's a reflection of what we're going through and we don't want to face it. And so at the root, the sister wound says there isn't enough to go around, as in there isn't enough love or safety or belonging for all of us women. There just isn't enough. We're not all nice women. You know, there's that foundational belief as a part of the sister wound. So the mother wound says, don't trust any women in this particular area, whether it's neglect, or being smothered, being manipulated, whatever it is that is the mother wound in that area of your life, you will feel like there is this part of you that can't trust that aspect in women, that authoritative role in women. And then there's also this part of the sister wound that says there's not enough of it to go around, as in there's not enough love or safety or belonging, whatever it is. And so those are the two core wounds that can play out and the main characteristics of them, the mother wound and the sister wound. But when we start to go into the characteristics of how they play out when we're in a reactive state around women, or when we're in a situation with women, the way we be and exist and react and respond around them can be expressed through the four main archetypes. We have the martyr, the peacemaker, the scapegoat, and the queen bee. These are the four main archetypes. Starting with the martyr has this core belief that I am worthy when I give my all, when I give my everything. So this is the person who overgives, overextends, and then starts to resent the person and struggles to ask for support or ask for appreciation or some kind of validation. But it's like, I'm not worthy unless I give my all, and that all is validated. That's the only time I have worth in a relationship with, and this can be with anyone, but we're talking again about sisterly and womanly connections. And so this is the martyr. Can it be applied to all relationships, but again, specific to women, we're talking about it now. And the martyr learned that love had to be earned through sacrifice, through giving your all, and not actually through reciprocity and genuine connection. When we are going through that way of being and responding, whether it's in relationship with a sister or a blood relative, the way we can feel somatically can be a collapsed chest, tight jaw, or chronic fatigue, just giving it your all and silently suffering on the inside. And so this is why we can often feel that collapsed chest, that defeat, the tight jaw from holding it all in and like not being able to rest or express how we are truly feeling. And the chronic fatigue comes in there because we're never stopping. We just keep giving. So that's the martyr. And then we have the queen bee, and her core belief is that I must stay on top to be safe. I must be the one who is shiny, desired, and above everyone else in a sense. She leads through control, comparison, and competition, and superiority to an extent. And it's not a nasty thing or a bitchy thing. I mean, yes, surface level queen bee can come off like a bitchy or a nasty thing, but it's actually formed when safety as the core mother wound or sister wound, whether it was in preschool or, you know, even ancestrally, where children down the mother line felt like safety depended on being chosen or admired or untouchable, put on a pedestal, so to speak. And so this queen bee really does come from that sister wound, mother wound core belief system of needing to be on top, needing to be your all, and needing to beat others in order to be acceptable and also in a way untouchable, as in somewhat closed off. So always in control in a way. And so the somatic cues of the queen bee, she can have this real rigid power posture, this guarded heart and shallow breath, because everything's so tight and constrained, and not opening up to vulnerability will lead her to having this real armor, like emotional armor. And so yes, it will show up somatically in the body as a rigid posture, guarded heart, shallow breath. And when I say shallow breath, I don't just mean shallow breath every now and then. I mean that becomes the constitution of her way of living and her way of being throughout her day-to-day, like constantly in sympathetic fight or flight mode, always having to be on top. Will do that to you anyway. So yeah, that's how she feels somatically when we're in that way of being the queen bee. Then we have the scapegoat, who is the complete opposite of the queen bee. She has the core belief that something is wrong with me. Like I feel alienated, and it's a different way of closing off. With the queen bee, it's like closing off from vulnerability and staying on top and staying in your power and staying in control. But with the scapegoat, it's like she's shrinking. It's almost like she's shrinking in response to the queen bee, so to speak. The scapegoat feels excluded and often blamed in groups because she's misunderstood. The scapegoat feels like she's alienated, like she's deeply picking up on something different to what everyone else is. You know, she feels like she's a bit of the lone wolf and seems to see things a different way from everyone else. She feels like she doesn't belong. There's no belongingness. And this can really stem from core sister wounds more so than mother wounds. And same with queen bee. I would say queen bee and scapegoat, out of the four main characteristics, are more to do with sister wounds and inner childlike wounds, whereas the martyr and the peacemaker tend to come from more core mother wounds and ways of being as adults rather than children. And so yeah, the scapegoat, she absorbs what the group cannot yet see or face, and therefore she feels alienated because of that. It's like she's the truth teller, but there's this real unbelonging that comes along with it, and this real shrinking that comes with it. And so somatically, she can have this heaviness in her chest, this withdrawal, this self-doubt, and the self-doubt loops start to kick in because of all that. And then we have the peacemaker. The peacemaker has the core belief that harmony is safer than honesty. As in, I will filter what I need to in order to keep the peace. Hence the peacemaker being the name of this archetype. She avoids conflict at all costs. So is not really great with conflict or conflict resolution. And so this is where some passive aggressiveness can come in, even if it's unintentional, because you want to be the people pleaser and the peacemaker. And so when we're in this way of being as the peacemaker, it's often that when we're being the peacemaker, she's seen as easy or low maintenance as well. Like, oh, you know, just keeping the peace, like not going to cause any trouble here. And so that's also a part of the peacemaker. She learned that safety comes from staying acceptable, likable, rather than authentic. So the good girl, in other words. And we can see this stem through the mother line when we look at things like that competitiveness that would have had to be around in order to gain a wealthy husband or security and safety within a husband. We need to be likable, we need to be acceptable, and we need to be the status quo. I'm not talking about right now in this current world. You know, a lot of us are aware of all that now, but when we're talking about the ancestral line and feminine lineage, even looking back at grandmothers and great-grandmothers and how they would have had to interact as women, there would have been that competition, that comparisonitis, so to speak, and that likability. I need to be likable. And with that comes this real shield of not being truly authentic, because we have to filter a part of ourselves in order to be likable or keep the peace. And so you can already start to look at 4 of these archetypes and start to think about their characteristics, their ways of being, their core beliefs. Start to relate to one of the 4 the most for yourself, and you can probably already start to spot people in your lives or people you've witnessed throughout your generation or your ancestral lineage who have had that way of being, that embodiment of that archetype. And you can start to really unpack what that is and what that means in terms of a unhealthy or unsupportive sisterly or womanly connection, you know, female relations. Now, when it comes to the states of our nervous system, we have a way of looking at it as well. And this isn't so much a way of being and embodying an archetype, but more the way our body feels when we are around other women. Somatic cues aside, we've gone through those. We're going to start to look through a little bit of basic polyvagal theory. We're looking at fight mode, flight mode, and fawn in the realms of feminine connection. And this is just another tool, just like the 4 archetypes, where you can start to understand how that's showing and presenting within your body when you're interacting with other women. And so when we're in fight mode, we're in competition mode. This is where the body, the nervous system perceives a threat, and we feel like there's this level of comparison or defensiveness or one-upmanship. Really aligns with that of the queen bee or that of the martyr, where we always need to be the best and give our all and stay on top. And at this point, when we're in fight mode, we're in comparison mode and competition mode. The body says, I must protect my worth. Whether that worth is coming from the validation of others, being the martyr and having to give your all and have that affirmed by other people, or whether that worth be coming from my worth is, queen bee and being up on the pedestal, needing to be shining above everyone else, the leading light, the golden child, so to speak. Then we have flight mode, which is the withdrawal mode. We were talking about this with the scapegoat and a bit of the peacemaker in a sense, because we're withdrawing a part of ourselves. And when we're in flight mode or withdrawal mode in our nervous system, our body starts to feel like emotionally distancing, avoiding women circles and areas, and just that narrative of I'm better on my own, which can also stem into the queen bee of like, I'm on top, I'm closed off from others, and I can do this on my own, that hyper independence. It really does flow into all four, this one. Like flight mode is like, I'm closing off, I'm going away, I can do this on my own, that hyper independence. And it really can stem throughout majority of the 4 archetypes, perhaps not the peacemaker as much. And so with flight mode, the body says that connection costs too much. It's too much to be vulnerable. It's not worth putting yourself on the line to be vulnerable because you might get hurt. And that's a real core mother wound to work with there as well. And so when we start to see our body in flight mode, this is something we can flag and go, okay, there's something to work with here. Just the same as fight mode as well. And then the last nervous system state we can talk about is fawn. Now, fawn comes in as a part of the nervous system response, the body's response, when we are in people-pleasing mode. And this is when belonging feels conditional to a certain way of being, which is much more relatable to that of the martyr, the overgiver, and having to be, seen as the one who gives it all, or the peacemaker who's seen as the acceptable one, the pleasing one, the no dramas one. And so this is where we go into not begging, but like that people-pleasing mode of over-agreeing, self-silencing, and shaping to fit in, which you can also see a little bit with the scapegoat as well, like shrinking because we feel alienated, and then becoming the peacemaker because we want to fit in. And the body says here, if I am likable, I'll stay safe. And so we can again flag this fawn mode where we feel like, okay, if I'm likable, that response in the body, that way of being in terms of the nervous system, okay, if I stay likable, it's all good. Like I don't want to tread on any toes or hurt anyone, which is very much the peacemaker and the people-pleasing archetype and how it flows in with that. So they're the 4 archetypes and the 3 nervous system states, the ways of being, that you can start to kind of flag and understand for yourself that there could be some more core feminine lineage, ancestral lineage, mother wound, sister wound stuff to unpack for yourself. Now, when it comes to going beyond identifying these core wounds and being aware of it, because like I said, awareness is the main thing. When you see something, you can't unsee it. It's hard to unsee it. You can't continue to repeat your mistakes over and over and over again. Eventually you will start to see the patterns more and more because you can't unsee it once you realize. And so what do we do once we have this realization or this deeper awareness of knowing thyself and understanding these core wounds that could be holding us back from having really supportive and thriving connections with women around us, is that we can start to go into somatic processes, yes, but also starting to look at those 3 nervous system states and start to think of it from that perspective of co-regulating with women, not codepending, but co-regulating and coexisting with other women. And so it's kind of like that saying of like who you surround yourself with, you will become, like it matters deeply. So you can start to, after you've become aware of it, start to repair it with somatic practices, starting to cue in, okay, well, what do I want my sisterhood and my motherly connections to look like? What do I want my body to feel when I'm around women? You can ask that question. What parts of me feel safe when I'm around women? And focusing on that. And then starting to slowly work on surrounding yourself around women, doing the things that make you feel good when you're around women. Surround yourself with the people that that light your soul on fire, that make you feel safe, that make you feel supported is the most important thing. That matters deeply. So that would be the next step you would take, is starting to regulate your nervous system, somatically inquiring into the body, what feels safe for you. And not in the sense of staying in your safe zone, as in avoiding a certain type of woman, but more knowing those core wounds, knowing why you're avoidant in that way, and starting to unpack that, process through that, and starting to go into, I always call it meeting your edge, and like exploring the barriers of connecting with like-minded women, women who make you feel really good, and overcoming those obstacles of, the martyr, the queen bee, the scapegoat, and the peacemaker, those ways of being. That would be my final point for this episode. And if you want to start venturing out and opening yourself up to other sisterly connections, and a lot of the things I've been talking about resonates for you, I would love to invite you into my Sisterhood community group on WhatsApp. I'll leave the application in the show notes below so that you can apply to join that group. And you can also join the Somatic Body subscriber, which is my newsletter, my email newsletter, where I'll often post monthly live events, the Womanhood web events on Zoom, and we all gather as women once a month and connect in that way as well. So you're welcome to join the community through the links in the show notes below. And I'll see you next time, where we're going to be unpacking and discussing the discomfort and pain that can come with being in a feminine body. See you then. As we finish this week's episode, remember that you are your own rhythm keeper. So just keep listening for that rhythm and keep coming home to you. Until next time, with love, Shannon at Somatic Body.